Get into it. Sold Not For Sale podcast, Coach Colin here. Somebody was like, hey, how do I know what podcast this is or who you are? Well, because I always say Sold Not For Sale podcast and I say Coach Colin here. Those aren't just words. That is who I am. That's what you're watching. Bang. Anyways, we got Joe Rogan talking about lab-grown meats. Now, I don't think he realizes what he's saying in this clip, but he's talking about lab-grown meat, and he's trying to make an argument for why it would be a great thing to have going. Now, DeSantis has already ruled against that, but there's been some other places that have as well, and there's good reason for that. We're going to get into those reasons after I show you the Rogan clip. Let's start off with the Rogan clip. He's talking about monkeys and how they eat each other, and then he's going to talk about lab-grown meat. Let's get into it, ladies and gentlemen.
Their favorite thing to do. They love to eat monkeys.
Yeah, they're probably little annoying creatures to them, you know. Like,
Well, they probably steal their food,
Yep.
right? Because they want the fruit. The monkeys want the fruit, so they're competition. You know, I mean, I'm sure, like male monkeys are probably very mean to baby chimps if they find one. You know, I'm sure there's like some mortal enemy thing they got going on. And also, the chimps eat them. They like to eat them. Like they taste good. They're easy to catch for them. They catch a bunch of them and they rip them apart. And it's good nutrition. That's a big part of their fucking diet. So this whole idea of like, we're primates, and a lot of primates eat meat. And it seems like everything back then ate everything, and we're the ones who survived. So the odds of us surviving on fucking fennel and grass and legumes, like, that's not what happened. It's not what happened. Probably the reason why we're here is because we're really good at eating meat. It's probably a big part of the reason. That's why chimps are dominating. Like they're eating a lot of meat, you know? Orangutans, they're just chilling.
Yeah.
I don't even think they eat meat. Do orangutans eat meat? Gorillas don't eat meat.
I think they're vegetarian, right, or something.
Gorillas
like
are straight up vegetarian, which is the thing that vegans always use. They always use, look at the muscles on him. You got muscles from plant power. Sure, if you're a gorilla. Yeah, if you're a gorilla, you don't need to eat meat. You're right, sir. The problem is not that. The problem is you're healthier if you eat meat, unfortunately. You know they're banning lab-grown meat?
Are they really?
And
Why?
they banned it in Florida, and they banned it in one other state.
What? Why?
I don't know. I don't even know if it makes sense. Like if if lab-grown meat is just cloned cells under some sort of a process, if the process is not harmful and you can recreate the tissue, why would that be bad? I'm not sure. First in the nation law prohibits anyone from selling or distributing lab-grown meat in Florida. Similar efforts are underway in Alabama, Arizona, and Tennessee. Lab-grown or cultivated meat was first cleared for consumption in the U.S. in 2022. Now, what's the danger of lab-grown meat? It says the end product is genetically indistinguishable from traditionally produced meat. The real problem would be letting these assholes have control over the fucking meat supply. That would be the real problem. If they actually try to push this whole climate change shit in regards to ranching, that we need to kill the cows because that's what's responsible for the methane, which is the tiniest of tiny percentages in the worldwide problem of pumping shit into the sky. Said we're fighting against an ideology that ultimately wants to eliminate meat production in the U.S. and around the globe. In the state of Florida, we put down the marker very clearly. We stand with agriculture. We stand with the cattle ranchers, he said. So it's a business decision. Florida Commissioner of Agriculture, Wilton Simpson, applauded legislation as a tremendous step in the right direction. Florida is taking a tremendous step in the right direction by signing first in the nation legislation banning lab-grown meat. So John Fetterman just supported it. This is interesting.
Yeah.
A Democrat from Pennsylvania, he said, it pains me deeply to agree with Mr. DeSantis, Mr. Fetterman wrote on X, but I co-sign this. That's weird that he would say that. I know how people are, but whatever, let it go. Good Meat, a cultivated meat company, which says it's the first in the world to sell lab-grown meat, wrote on X that it was disappointed by the new Florida law. In a state that purportedly prides itself on being a land of freedom and individual liberty, its government is now telling consumers what meat they can or cannot purchase, it said. That's a good point, too. Here's the thing. If they don't control animal agriculture, okay. As long as they don't control, like, can't there be a middle ground where people are allowed to make artificial meat, but they're not allowed to interfere with agriculture? And then you let people decide what they want to do. Because if that stuff turns out to be as nutritious as regular meat, and they can make it easy, and there's no more factory farming, wouldn't that be a good thing? Wouldn't that be a good thing? Like, if you had a wave a wand and choose, would you choose the system that's currently in place or a complete elimination of factory farming replaced by lab-grown meat, which is completely indistinguishable from meat from animals in terms of nutrition, taste, the way it looks, everything's exactly the same, and allow regular agriculture to still exist. Allow regenerative agriculture, like these ranches where the cattle graze and the chickens run free, and make laws so you say you can't keep any animal in a tiny box that is surrounded by a river of its own shit and just pump it full of food until you shoot it in the head. You can't do that because that's kind of evil. So instead of that, we're going to replace it with this. Anybody that cares about life would say that's better. You just got to make sure that that thing that you're making doesn't completely control the food supply and doesn't eliminate ranchers and eliminate normal agriculture and regenerative agriculture, which has proved to be carbon neutral. That thing, that lab-grown thing, you're going to power that thing. You're going to have coal power plants or nuclear powered plants or something. Are you going to do it with solar? Well, okay, maybe. Maybe you can. With wind, you're going to kill a bunch of birds. Like, you got to power that thing, and it's a lot of power. You're going to make a lot of this funky meat. But it's probably a better solution than factory farming, right? As long as you let regular agriculture still exist.
Right.
Imagine if like nutritious food was readily available to everybody. So like going to the supermarket and getting a lab-grown steak is like $1.
Or printing your own food.
Yeah, you get a 16-ounce ribeye. It's $1. You take it home, get the frying pan going, you get an awesome steak for $1. But it's fake. But you don't care. You don't even notice. And no animal suffered. That doesn't, to me, seem like a bad thing. It's just we don't trust corporations and we don't trust money and we don't trust these climate change psychos who are like, they want you to destroy civilization in order to mitigate a percentage of the impact that humans are having while ignoring the fact that it's a tiny percentage of the global impact. And that these fucking other countries, like China keeps building coal plants. They don't give a fuck about what you're saying. They'll come to the meetings, they'll shake your hand, and they just do what's best for China. And that's how you dominate. And that's what they're doing. It's very smart. What we're doing is goofy as shit. We're letting a bunch of crazy ideologues tell us what they, and a lot of these people don't even know the real argument pro or con about what effect human beings are having on the earth. They just know that it's a thing you're supposed to support, and they just say it. And when you challenge them on it, they get real weird. They get weird, like you're on the wrong side of history, and you say just like, this thing has never been static though, you know? Like this thing we're on, this earth has never been static, ever. There's not one time where you could like accurately predict that it was going to be 70 degrees on September 1st and 72 degrees on September. Shit changes. Things go nutty. Things move around. High pressure systems, hurricanes, tornadoes, volcanoes. You can't control it. You just stop polluting, you fucks.
It has been 10 minutes and Brian has said 15 words. It's very odd. It's very odd. I really do think Brian has been traumatized from the earlier JRE episodes where they would get into arguments over everything. I really do think that is what happened because he does not talk. Maybe he doesn't have much to say. It's just a very odd podcast. The whole time, Joe's just ranting, you know, and Brian's just like, oh, yeah, we got this. Oh, we got that. Like, there's very few sentences he says in this whole thing. Out of 2.5 hours, I'd be surprised if he spoke for 10 minutes. I'd be really surprised if he spoke for 10 minutes. Not even close. Now, Joe Rogan, what's he talking about? Lab-grown meat. Now, what is the number one reason to stay away from lab-grown meat? Everybody's going to have their own reasons. Some people are going to be like, I just don't want to taste that type of thing. I don't want that. I don't like the process. I don't know what they're cloning it from. Here's my number one reason. Bill Gates is one of the top investors into lab-grown meat. Okay. Well, that's enough for me. Hey, that's enough for me. Honestly, it really is. Once I know Bill Gates is the one investing into it heavily, I'm good. And honestly, when it comes to lab-grown meat, haven't we had enough of being the ones who try things out first? Like, no. You get someone to eat this for a lifetime and let's see the effects. We don't want to be the test subject. Like, you know what I mean? Find somebody else to figure that out for you. You're still figuring out math and you're still figuring out how this whole thing plays out. And you're trying to do it on populations of people. What are you talking about? No. No, not using lab-grown meat. Bill Gates has been a long-time advocate for lab-grown meat, also known as cultured meat or clean meat. Remember that if you're ever wondering. Somebody says, oh, this is cultured meat or this is clean meat. Cultured meat might even sound aged, right? Remember, it means that it's lab-grown when people use that. You might see it on something. You might see it labeled on something. Just remember that. He believes that lab-grown meat can reduce the environmental impact of traditional meat production, which is a significant contributor to greenhouse gas emissions and deforestation. I'm convinced that when I hear somebody talk about contributor to greenhouse gas, that they're just talking about us. When you hear that, just think of basically they're saying it is a main contributor to people being able to have some kind of self-sufficiency. And we just want to get rid of that. We're just looking to get rid of the self-sufficiency, because Joe Rogan brings up the point. He's like, oh, as long as it doesn't interfere with agriculture. That's like saying, oh, well, as long as Uber doesn't interfere with taxis. It's like, oh, well, sorry. That's exactly what it does. That's what its full intention is. And as you can see right there, the investors have that in mind as well. 100%. So of course it's going to interfere with agriculture. And it's not a business decision. He brought that up as he was reading something. It's not a business decision. That's a human decision. You're basically saying, hey, you want less people to be working on this, and you want to get rid of all these farmers. And somebody's saying no, and I get it. You might see a video of factory farming and be like, oh, it's this and that. Man, I'm team human every single day, all day. And I'm especially team farmers. Man, don't take away the farmers. Don't do it. Don't take away the people that have the knowledge to grow animals and have them be our food. Don't take those people away. Don't take away people who know how to grow our food. We need that knowledge. I don't think many of us understand how sacred and how important that knowledge is. And if we move over to lab-grown meat and that just starts spreading everywhere, the next thing they're going to do is start it would be an obvious next step. We've seen this play out 4 or 5 years ago. They say it's for one thing, then all of a sudden they get the lab-grown meat out there and it's everywhere and people are liking it, and then they demonize the farmers. That's obviously what's going to happen. Obviously. And then the farmers are just going to get bought out and forced to close up and this and that. They'll get more pressure, like the people in, I believe it was Ireland, who are getting pressure to get rid of 250,000 cows, get rid of them by just culling them. It's just going to become more of that until there are no more farmers. And there's already so little farmers left in the world. Real farmers that you could go and learn from and understand and sustain yourself if things go sideways. And that's what they want. I'm convinced that's what they want, honestly. Anything here? Oh, they have some quotes from Gates. Let's hear a Gates quote. I do think all rich countries should move to 100% synthetic meat. You can get used to the taste difference. And the argument is that you're saving an awful lot of animals. Are you? Especially see it's always so counter what they're saying, because it's like, oh, you're gonna save all those animals now, so now what are all those animals gonna do? So now they're all just gonna roam, and that's what's gonna happen. There's just gonna be cows roaming and wild cows. Like, that's not gonna happen. Ireland already showed what's gonna happen. They're gonna call for culling. They're gonna be like, well, these animals are still here and they're emitting gas and it's contributing to the greenhouse gases. That's what's gonna happen. That's what's going to happen. Come on. That's why I am optimistic that they will all move to lab-grown meat. And he's an investor. Like, this is so silly. This is so silly. He's basically just trying to sell the thing that he invested in. Raising meat takes a great deal of land and water and a substantial environmental impact. Simply put, there's no way to produce enough meat to feed 9 billion people. Well, then you become vegan. You and all your friends become vegan, and, make sure there's a little more for the rest of us. And we're doing pretty good on feeding quite a bit of people right now. So to act like there's no way to feed 9 billion people. Okay, well, those other billions, let's say it's 2 billion that don't have food. Go bring lab-grown meat to them and make it just an initiative. Do it pro bono. Do it from the goodness of your heart. Get them fed and just leave us alone. It's just like it's so easy to counteract these silly arguments that they have. Yet we can't ask everyone to become vegetarians. That's why we need more options for producing meat without depleting our resources. Yeah. Anyway, let's move on here. DeSantis, man, always making great decisions as a governor, I have to say. He banned lab-grown meat right away. He said this in a tweet. He said, global elites. Man, he should have led with more of this talk when he was running for president. It's very weird that he didn't lead with more of this talk. Global elites want to control our behavior and push a diet of petri dish meat and bugs on Americans. Florida is saying no. I was proud to sign SB 1084 to keep lab-grown meat out of Florida and prioritize farmers and ranchers over the agenda of the elites and the World Economic Forum. Beautiful, man. Beautiful. He should have been saying a lot more of that stuff. Somebody must have been in his ear telling him not to say stuff like that. Because that would have got him points with a lot of people. If he just kept harping on the globalists and the World Economic Forum, he should have really stuck to that. Now, also, serious health concerns. I'm not saying anything. I'm saying, I'll say allegedly. I don't know. But just people have been saying it, that there is health concerns. And the people who are saying it is Italy, the government of Italy, after looking into it. So that's another reason why this stuff can't be trusted. Farmers over lab coats every single day of the week, folks. No matter what. Another big investor into lab-grown meat, Jeff Bezos. What was the other thing that these two were heavily invested in? Yeah, I can't remember. And farmland too? Funny how they're invested in farmland and that they both gave a statement saying that they're invested in farmland because they want to create jobs and make the land productive, which everybody thought, and they gave the impression that it was getting the farmland going. But in reality, they're invested in lab-grown meat and they don't want farms to actually get going. So when they bought up this farmland, what they're actually doing is stopping any potential farming going on that land so the thing that they're invested in does better. Wow. Smart, but I see through it. So he's invested $60 million into it so far. Not a crazy amount when you're Jeff Bezos, I'll be honest. He invested into something called the Bezos Earth Fund, a venture capital founded by Bezos, $60 million initial investment. It includes sustainable protein, including plant-based, fermented, and cultivated meats. The investment is a part of a $1 billion commitment to expand food production and addressing climate change. Yeah, these guys are heavily into the whole climate change thing. Obviously, they're in it for money. I'm just going to be honest there. In May 2024, Governor DeSantis, he banned lab-grown meat. We all knew this. This move was seen as a setback for Bezos and his investment in lab-grown meat, as Florida is a significant market for the industry. However, Bezos has not publicly commented on the ban. Good for DeSantis, man. Just maybe knowingly or unknowingly standing up to guys like Bezos and Bill Gates. Lab-grown meat hasn't seen the shells, but some states have already banned it. Everybody knows. Florida did. I believe Alabama as well. I think it says it right there. Earlier this month, Florida and Alabama banned the sale of cultivated meat and seafood. Remember, all that little fancy language is just lab-grown meat, which is grown from animal cells. In Iowa, the governor signed a bill prohibiting schools from buying lab-grown meat. Thank God, man. Thank God that these people are just jumping on it. Good for them. Good for them. So, sometimes, I'm listening to Rogan. I always listen to Rogan. Love Rogan. But you gotta think about this, man. You gotta think about this. And there's some claims that it is carcinogenic, which is just all around bad. Just carcinogenic. 53 hazards have been identified. It's not good for you. And maybe it will be in the future. I don't know. But why do we have to be the ones to find out? We have to be the ones that are sitting there ready to find out whether or not it is. It's absolutely ridiculous. So obviously, when I was listening to Rogan talk about this whole thing, right away I was just like, this is nonsense. You know, I don't know about you. I'm not for lab grown meat whatsoever. And the fact that he thinks it's going to be $1, but then he also thinks that it's going to take a massive amount of power just doesn't add up. If it's going to take a massive amount of power, that means each one's going to cost a certain amount of money. That money's not going to be cents. It's going to be dollars, and it's going to be a company with people who are invested in it, like Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos. So they're not going to accept making 30 cents on every steak. They're just not going to. So what are they going to do? It's going to be dollars. It might even cost more than a regular steak because you're saving the planet. And the next thing you know, we're all paying even more than what we're paying now for meat. And it's not even going to be real meat, and it has potential health risks. Come on. Come on. Everything points to no. Every single thing points to no. But at the same time, Rogan doesn't know all this stuff. He doesn't get to sit here and just research in the quiet. He doesn't get to do all that. But I did, and I wanted you guys to know. Stay away from lab-grown meat. That's just my opinion. Maybe you want to try it. I myself never will. But that's it for the podcast. Please like the podcast. Please subscribe to the channel. Please turn on notifications if you've done both those things. It helps the channel tremendously. And other than that, I'm out.